do what you would dig even if you were doing it for free, because it makes every day go by fast, and you always look forward to the next day.
Welcome once again to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs, and our conversation concludes now with radio production director and voiceover talent Douglas C. Brown, whom you can find online at douglascbrown.com. Now, Doug, you grew up knowing Bob Wian. He was the founder of Bob's Big Boy Restaurants, which are nationwide, the home of the Double Decker. Tell us about how you got to know the Wian family.
Well, it was actually my mom and dad, Glenn and Eileen Brown, were good friends with Wian well before his first store opened, before Bob's Pantry opened, which I think was 1933, 34, something like that, in Glendale. They were good friends. They used to go dancing together. They used to hang out together. They were just in a group of people that would socialize. As I remember, the story of it is that Bob Wian was just a fry cook at a restaurant, and he got this idea of opening his own place. So he opened this little, 15-stool place called Bob's Pantry on Colorado Boulevard in Glendale, and he wanted to expand it. And I remember the story goes that he went to my mom and dad and asked them to invest. I think he wanted them to invest like $300 so he could expand. Now, in $300 in 1933 was a big chunk of money. And so my mom and dad did not invest with him for either they couldn't afford it or didn't believe in the idea or whatever, that they didn't. But they stayed really close friends over the years. And then we watched, of course, Bob's Big Boy grow into the legendary Southern California restaurant chain it was. And so Wian, when he was very successful, had a house in Toluca Lake, actually right on Toluca Lake. And we go down there to visit on occasion. I don't know if you remember in the early days of CNN cable news, there was a reporter named Casey Wian. Well, that was Bob's adopted son. And so, he had an itching to be in broadcasting. I guess I'm not sure what happened to him after CNN, but I recognized him and knew who he was at the time. And so it was really interesting because my dad and mom were really close with Bob Wian. And my strongest memory of this is my dad died unexpectedly in December of 1959. And so my mom we were having a wake at my house in Glendale. And so, of course, Wian shows up, and he takes over the kitchen, of course, right? And I'll never forget this. At this point, I'm, 12 years old? He takes over the kitchen, and watching him work was absolutely mesmerizing. I can picture him standing there with a big knife, chopping tomatoes, making slices of tomatoes, and he's doing it so fast, and he's not even looking at his hands.
Wow.
He's like talking to me, and he's chopping with this big, sharp knife. He's chopping these tomatoes up, and it's like, oh my gosh, this guy's a pro. This guy, he knows how to do this. So anyway, so he was really close to my family. He used to send us Christmas gifts every year. In fact, I still have a couple of Big Boy things. I got like a double set of Big Boy playing cards, and I had a lamp with about a 6-inch tall porcelain Big Boy on it that I loved. My brother and I both had those lamps and stuff. So he was really close to the family. My mom, after my dad died, stayed very close to him. And he was actually, I think he was planning a career in politics in the late 70s. He was thinking about running for lieutenant governor of California at the time. But he had a heart attack and died in the middle of that. But my mom had always stayed in touch with him because they went way back again to the 30s, and it was maybe the most exciting thing I ever did with him was there is of course still a Bob's Big Boy on Riverside Drive in Burbank. Everybody calls it the Toluca Lake location, but it's actually in Burbank on Riverside Drive, right near Warner Brothers Studios and all that. And we were at Wian's house one day, and he said, "Let's go get some burgers." So we piled in the car and drove over to the Toluca Lake store over there, which is still a drive-in, amazingly enough. And he took us in there. And my gosh, when they saw him walk through the door, it was like, whoa, the boss is here. You know, you can imagine. That was like, whoa, as many times as I'd been to Bob's, that was really an experience. And, you know, it was always the place to go for me after, you know, high school football games and all that, either the original drive-in down on Colorado or one of the other many locations that opened. I still yearn for the taste of a Big Boy every once in a while. And here's the other deal. My dad was Bob's campaign manager when he ran for and won as mayor of the city of Glendale, 1948. My dad was his campaign manager.
Wow.
So Bob Wian was the mayor of Glendale, at least for one term. I don't remember if it went longer than that, but that was my dad's connection with him. So even though they missed an opportunity to invest in Bob's Big Boy business, they stayed close. And then I think it was about 1969 or 70, he sold out the business to the Marriott Corporation. And that original $300 investment would have been a major payday for my mom at that point. But that was one to speculate about. But anyway, so that's my Bob Wian and family story.
Yeah, I remember as a little kid going to the Big Boy on Colorado Boulevard, or Colorado Street in Glendale, which became a mini mall with a Blockbuster. I forget what's there now. I think Little Caesar's Pizza. And then the one in the Egrot Plaza, the Bob's Big Boy Jr. I remember as a little kid, you know, running up toward and jumping on, hugging the Big Boy statue they had in front of the eatery. The Big Boy! I'd be like hugging it and stuff. And I
know. Do you remember they had a comic book, Big Boy comic book, and I still have. I think I have one of those, and I have a pin.
Wow!
I gave away little lapel pins and stuff like this. Yeah, it was very cool. And you know, the only thing Wian did is a mistake. Well, first of all, what he did is he created this commissary in Glendale where they created a lot of the food products. So when they would go out to the various stores, it would be very consistent, store to store. And this is before McDonald's figured this out, you know. Anyway, but what he did wrong is he decided he wanted to go, you know, grow outside of Southern California. So he did the franchise business of Big Boys. But he didn't require him to be called Bob's Big Boy. So if it was in Utah, it would be, you know, Mike's Big Boy. Or in Arizona, it was somebody else's Big Boy. Well, that instantly made national advertising very difficult, you know. So I think he made a real mistake there when it came to the franchise business. If he could have franchised it, I suppose, and made it even bigger, but he should have made him keep it Bob's Big Boy. So, you know, so you could do national or regional advertising from promotion. But it seems to me that was a major mistake.
What I remember a couple months ago, I was watching an episode of The Nighttime Price is Right with Dennis James, which was on from 72 to 77. So while Bob Barker did the daytime, Dennis was host of the nighttime. Same set, same malls, same announcer, just different host. And at the end of the show, which the CBS didn't have plugs at the end of the show, but the syndicated version did. So one of them was like Johnny Olson said, contestants not appearing on stage will receive gift certificates to Big Boy restaurants nationwide, home of the double decker from Big Boy. So basically they just said Big Boy restaurants. And then there's an episode of Name That Tune from the late 70s. Again, some of our contestants will receive gift certificates to Big Boy restaurants nationwide. So they just used the word Big Boy because obviously with the different names. Like my mom remembers in Illinois where she's from, it was Top's Big Boy. Now it's called Mark's Big Boy. And then in the Midwest, they still have a separately owned company called Frisch's Big Boy, where the difference between their double-decker and ours has that red relish. The Frisch's Big Boy double-decker has tartar sauce.
Oh, wrong.
Exactly.
Tartar sauce, Bob used to do that great shrimp dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy, that was good. And tartar sauce would work there. But the thing is, though, that everybody quickly turned the name of Bob's Big Boy into just Bob's.
Mm-hmm.
So if it could have been just Bob's in all these other locations, it would have been very easily marketable. But to make it, look for the Big Boy, but it's got another name attached to it, Frisch's or Pops or somebody else, it's confusing. It's just lousy marketing, I mean, if it had a consistent name, I mean, it's not like it's, Frisch's McDonald's and Pops McDonald's or something. It's McDonald's, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think as sharp as Bob Wian was, I just think that was probably a mistake if he wanted to go national with it. I know that I talked to people who grew up in Utah, and they loved the restaurant, but I forgot what the name was in Utah. They had several locations, like around Salt Lake and like BYU University and the like. God, I can't remember the name of it, but they all called it by the first name as well. They weren't calling it Big Boy.
I think it was called JB's Big Boy.
JB's, I think you're right. And they all called it JB's. And I remember thinking at the time when they first said, what's JB's? And they said, oh, they have these great triple-decker sandwiches. I said, oh, you mean Bob's? No, it's JB's. Well, see, there you go. Mistake. Anyway, it is interesting how that evolved. There is a really funny video on YouTube of Bob Wian. I think it was made probably in the mid 50s. It's like a recruiting video aimed at young women who he's trying to recruit women to be waitresses at Bob's.
Mm-hmm.
It's a black and white film. It's about 30 minutes or something, and it's really hilarious. What they have like an example of a poorly groomed, bad attitude young lady trying to be a waitress, as opposed to a freshly scrubbed, perfect Bob's waitress over here. And the way they do it, I mean, it's by today's standards, the idea of discriminating against people.
Mm-hmm.
But how they cut their hair or something like this, it seems so absurd. But you do see Wian on camera interviewing these people and such. So you ought to look for it. Look on YouTube. Look for Bob's Big Boy or Big Boy training film.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's or a training film or a employee introduction or something. It's pretty funny by today's standards, but that's exactly what Bob looked like and acted like. It's exactly like him.
What was the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Career-wise?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was probably do what you would dig even if you were doing it for free, because it makes every day go by fast, and you always look forward to the next day because you just enjoy it. You get off on it, being it creative or musical or an outlet for your energies or whatever. The idea of picking something that you do for free is kind of, that was mentioned to me many years ago. And I believe in that because, I spent 40-odd years in electronic media, music, radio, and related subjects. And I found that there was probably 10 days out of 40 years I didn't want to go to work because it was that exciting. There was always something interesting, something new. And I could make a living at it. And, that was cool. Obviously, this was back in the days of, in L.A., all the stations that I worked for were unionized, either SAG-AFTRA or IBEW. So, making decent wages and doing something that you like to do because that made every day go by, looking forward to the next one rather than saying, oh, God, I got to go to work again, like some people are doing the rest of their life,
Yeah.
So I think that's, I can't remember who first told me that, I remember John Badeau, who was the production director at KHJ before I took over. He had been Real Non-Steel's board operator for most of the years at KHJ. And when he left KHJ, I remember one of the last things he said to me when he left was, just because I can do it doesn't mean I dig it. Because he was a really good production guy, really good, very, very musical ear, good with a razor blade and multi-track tape and such. He was really good at it. But to make a statement like that, that tells me a lot. Just because I can do it doesn't mean I dig it. Think about that. That's a pretty heavy statement. It
is. This is the Talking Archive. I'm Josh James. We're talking with Douglas C. Brown. He has a website, douglascbrown.com. douglascbrown.com. Also, check out his radio station online. It's a recreation of the mellow sound of 93 KNX FM, chronicling the years from 1973 to 1983 with a wide variety of music. That website is themellowsound.net, themellowsound.net. And Doug, thanks for being with us today.
Sure, absolutely. It was good fun reminiscing a little bit, and thanks for having me on the show.
And Doug's own website is douglascbrown.com. That's douglascbrown.com. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any suggestions for guests, or if you'd like to be a guest, it's joshdj57@gmail.com. That's joshdj57@gmail.com. And until next time, keep your mind on the things above, and as you hit that open road, don't be a slow down spectator.